Room 313, the guest who never checked out. Rizwan had spent the entire day traveling. By the time he reached Hotel Crown Residency, it was almost midnight. His shoulders ached, his eyes burned, and all he wanted was a clean bed, a locked door, and a few hours of sleep before his meeting the next morning. The hotel stood at the edge of the city, away from the noise, tucked between a closed shopping plaza and an empty service road. It looked decent from the outside: 4 floors, warm yellow lights, a glass entrance, and a polished sign above the gate. But the moment Rizwan stepped inside, something felt off. The lobby was too quiet. No music, no conversations. No footsteps. Only the ticking of an old wall clock and the low hum of a chandelier above the reception desk. Behind the counter stood a thin old receptionist with silver hair and hollow eyes. He wore a perfectly ironed uniform, but his face looked pale, almost sickly. "Reservation?" he asked. Rizwan nodded and handed him his ID. The man checked the computer, typed for a few seconds, then frowned. "We only have 1 room available tonight." "That's fine," Rizwan said. "I just need somewhere to sleep." The receptionist hesitated. His fingers stopped over the keyboard. Then he opened a drawer and pulled out a brass key attached to a tag. 313, he placed it on the desk very slowly. Rizwan noticed the number and smirked. "What happened to room 314? The receptionist didn't smile. He simply pushed the key toward him and said in a low voice, "If anyone knocks after 2 a.m., do not open the door." Rizwan stared at him. "Why?" The man looked at the hallway behind Rizwan, as if making sure no one else could hear. "Because the person outside won't be a guest." Rizwan gave a tired laugh. "You tell that to all your customers?" The receptionist didn't answer. That should have been Rizwan's first warning. But tired people ignore strange things. And that night Rizwan was very, very tired. The 3rd floor, the elevator was old and painfully slow. As it climbed to the 3rd floor, the lights inside flickered twice. Rizwan checked his phone, no signal. "Perfect," he muttered. When the doors opened, a wave of cold air rushed over him. The 3rd floor corridor was long and narrow, with dark red carpet and dim wall lamps that cast weak yellow light across faded wallpaper. Every room door looked identical, except for one thing. Room 313 sat at the very end of the hallway, and unlike the others, its door looked older, scratched, worn, as if many people had tried to get in or get out. Rizwan walked toward it, the sound of his suitcase wheels echoing through the corridor. He passed room 309, 311, then finally stopped in front of 313. For a second he noticed something odd. The air around the door was colder than the rest of the hallway. He told himself it was probably an AC vent. He unlocked the room and stepped inside. The room 313 was larger than expected. A king-sized bed stood in the center, neatly made with white sheets. There was a small TV mounted on the wall, a writing desk by the window, a wardrobe, and a bathroom with black and white tiles that looked decades old. Everything seemed normal, too normal. The room had the unsettling neatness of a place that hadn't been lived in, but had been prepared anyway. Rizwan dropped his bag on the floor and loosened his tie. He was about to switch on the TV when he heard it, a faint sound. From the bathroom, drip, drip, drip. He walked over and pushed the bathroom door open. The sink tap was leaking, 1 drop at a time. He sighed, tightened it, and looked up into the mirror. For a split second, he saw a man standing behind him. Tall, thin, wearing a dark hotel uniform. Rizwan spun around, no one there. The bathroom was empty. His heart pounded once hard. He stared at the mirror again. Nothing. "Lack of sleep," he muttered. He splashed water on his face, shut the bathroom light, and returned to the bedroom. Outside, rain began tapping against the window. Within minutes, the soft rhythm of the storm and the exhaustion in his bones pulled him into sleep. 2:07 a.m. knock. 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 Rizwan's eyes opened instantly. The room was dark. The clock beside the bed read 2:07 a.m. For a second he forgot where he was. Then came the sound again. Knock, knock, knock. Someone was at the door. Rizwan sat up, irritated. He got out of bed and walked toward the entrance, still half asleep. His hand reached for the lock, and then he remembered the receptionist's warning. If anyone knocks after 2 a.m., do not open the door. He stopped. The silence outside was heavy. No footsteps, no voices, nothing. He leaned toward the peephole and looked out. The hallway was empty. Rizwan frowned. He unlocked the chain slightly and opened the door just an inch, but before he could look outside properly, a voice whispered from directly below the peephole. "Please help me." Rizwan slammed the door shut so hard the frame shook. He stepped back, breathing fast. That voice had been right outside. But when he looked through the peephole, there had been no one there. Then the voice came again, soft, weak, almost crying. "I know you're inside." Rizwan grabbed the room phone and dialed reception. No answer. He dialed again, still nothing. Outside, the whispering continued. "Open the door, please." "I can't stay in the hallway." Rizwan unplugged the phone and backed away from the entrance. That's when the knocking stopped, and the scratching began, slowly, deliberately, like fingernails dragging down wood. The window Rizwan turned on every light in the room. The scratching continued for another minute, then suddenly stopped. Silence. Complete silence. He stood there for several seconds, waiting. Nothing. He exhaled slowly and moved toward the window to calm himself. Rain streamed down the glass. The hotel parking lot below was empty except for a single black car near the gate. Then he noticed something in the reflection. Someone was standing behind him, not in the room, in the reflection. Rizwan turned around, nothing. He looked back at the window. The reflection was gone. His pulse raced. This was ridiculous. He was tired, stressed, and imagining things. That was all. He walked to the bathroom, splashed water on his face again, and stared into the sink. Then he noticed something strange. There was water on the floor, a trail of wet footprints. Bare footprints. They started at the bathroom door and led toward the bed. Rizwan slowly looked up. The sheets on the bed were no longer smooth. Someone or something had been sitting on it. The call from the empty room, the room phone, rang. Rizwan jumped so hard he nearly slipped. He stared at it for a moment before answering. "Hello?" Static, then a voice, a woman's voice, weak and trembling. "Don't let him in." Rizwan's mouth went dry. "Who is this?" "He's still looking for his room key," the woman whispered. "He knocks on doors now." "Who?" The line crackled. Then she said, "The guest who never checked out." The call ended. Rizwan stared at the phone in horror. Then, from behind him, the bathroom door slowly creaked shut on its own. The story of room 313. Rizwan didn't want to stay another second. He grabbed his bag, unlocked the door, and stepped into the hallway. The corridor was darker now. Half the wall lamps had gone out. He hurried toward the elevator, but the elevator doors were open, dark, and dead. No lights inside, no movement, so he rushed toward the staircase. Halfway there he heard a voice behind him. "Sir?" Rizwan turned. The old receptionist stood at the far end of the hallway, but something was wrong. His uniform was soaked with water. His eyes were wide with terror. And there was a deep red cut across his throat. "You open the door," the receptionist whispered. Rizwan stumbled back. "What are you?" The receptionist took one shaky step forward. "Room 313 used to belong to a businessman named Faisal Mirza," he said. 10 years ago, he checked in during a storm. He was carrying a suitcase full of cash. He never checked out. Lightning flashed outside the window. For 3 days, no one saw him. Then the smell began. Rizwan's stomach tightened. They found him in the bathroom, throat cut, eyes open. Room locked from the inside. The receptionist's voice trembled. The money was gone. The killer was never found. Rizwan stared at him. "Then who was calling my room?" The receptionist's expression changed. Slowly, fear turned into something else. Something colder. "Not him," he said. Before Rizwan could react, every light on the floor went out. The man with the key in the darkness. Rizwan heard the sound of metal scraping across the floor. Then footsteps. Slow, heavy, wet. A faint yellow emergency light flickered on at the end of the corridor. And there he was. A man in an old suit, his shirt soaked with blood, one side of his face split open as if struck with something sharp. In his hand he held an old brass key. 313. His dead eyes locked onto Rizwan. Then he smiled. "Have you seen my room?" he asked. Rizwan couldn't move. The man began walking toward him. Each step left behind a wet, dark footprint. Rizwan turned and ran. He sprinted down the corridor, his suitcase crashing behind him, his breath tearing through his throat. He reached the staircase door, shoved it open, and stumbled inside. The stairwell was pitch black. He ran downward blindly, gripping the railing. 3rd floor, 2nd floor, 1st floor. But when he burst through the door expecting the lobby, he found himself back on the 3rd floor. Back in front of room 313. The corridor was empty. The door to 313 stood open. And from inside came the sound of a man humming. Inside the room, Rizwan should have run. He should have screamed. He should have done anything except step inside. But fear has a strange way of pulling people toward the very thing they should escape. The room was dark except for the bathroom light. The humming came from inside. Rizwan moved slowly across the carpet. The bathroom door was half open. He pushed it and froze. The dead man from the hallway was sitting on the edge of the bathtub, staring at his own reflection in the mirror. Blood dripped from his throat into the sink. In the mirror, however, his reflection looked alive. Normal, smiling. The reflection turned its head and looked directly at Rizwan. Then it whispered, "He killed me for the money." Rizwan's knees nearly gave out. The dead man in the room slowly raised one shaking finger and pointed behind Rizwan. Rizwan turned. Standing in the doorway was the receptionist, only now he was smiling too. "I told you not to open the door," he said. Rizwan backed away. "You're dead." The receptionist tilted his head. "Yes," he said, "because I was the one who killed him." Rizwan's heart slammed against his ribs. "I took the money. I thought it was over." His smile widened unnaturally. "But he never left, so I stayed too." The bathroom mirror cracked from top to bottom. The dead guest rose slowly from the tub. His neck bent sideways with a sickening snap. Then both ghosts looked at Rizwan, and together they said, "We need a new guest." The last checkout the next morning, Hotel Crown Residency looked perfectly normal. Guests checked in. Bags rolled across the lobby. Tea was served. Rainwater dried from the entrance tiles, but room 313 remained locked. At 9 a.m., housekeeping knocked and got no answer. When the manager opened the room, Rizwan was gone. His bag was still there. His shoes were still by the bed. His wallet and phone sat on the desk, but Rizwan himself had vanished. On the bathroom mirror, written in dripping water, were 6 words. He opened the door for US. The manager ordered the room sealed again. No police report was filed. No news was published. Within a week, the hotel was taking bookings as usual. Months later, another traveler arrived late at night during heavy rain. The old receptionist behind the counter smiled politely and handed him a brass key. 313, the traveler laughed when warned not to open the door after 2 a.m. And that night, exactly at 2:07 a.m., there was a knock. He walked to the door and looked through the peephole. Standing outside was a terrified young man with pale skin, trembling hands, and eyes full of tears. He kept whispering, "Please let me in." The traveler hesitated. The man outside looked desperate, human, harmless, so he unlocked the door. The hallway outside was empty. And from behind him, inside the room, 3 voices whispered at once, "Welcome to room 313.